Welcome back, everyone. Ready for another deep dive.
Always.
Today, we're tackling something truly mind-bending, telepathy,
Oh, interesting.
and specifically, how it might be connected to higher consciousness. Our listeners fascinated by the idea of a mother and daughter communicating telepathically.
Okay, I see, yeah.
And there's an extra layer to this. The daughter, in this scenario, is blindfolded,
Wow.
and she's autistic.
Okay.
So we're really asking, could their minds operate in a space that goes beyond our usual understanding? A space that allows them to connect without words, without sight, maybe even without thought, as we typically think of it.
Well, what's really fascinating is that we have a few sources that hint at some pretty incredible possibilities.
Oh, I like where this is going.
We have excerpts from a text that dives into some seriously mind-blowing concepts. And we'll also be looking at a documentary series, The Telepathy Tapes, which explores real-world examples of what could be telepathic communication.
Sounds like we're about to go deep down the rabbit hole. What are some of the big ideas we'll be unpacking today?
Well, buckle up, because we're going to be exploring some pretty wild territory, like the mind as a non-local field, almost like a 3D realm of consciousness.
Intriguing.
We'll also touch on DNA resonance, the possibility that our very genes might act as communication channels.
Okay, I'm listening.
And of course, we can't talk about interconnectedness without venturing into the quantum world, specifically quantum entanglement.
All right, my brain is already buzzing.
Yeah.
Let's start with this idea of the mind as a non-local field. What does that even mean?
So imagine this. You and I are having a conversation.
Okay.
But instead of our thoughts being confined to our brains, they exist in a field of consciousness that extends beyond our physical bodies.
So it's not just about signals traveling from one brain to another.
Exactly.
It's about minds existing in a shared space where those signals don't need to travel in the traditional sense.
Exactly. Think about how this could relate to the mother-daughter connection.
Right.
They have a deep, lifelong bond. What if their minds in this non-local space are already intertwined, almost like threads woven together? That could explain how they might be able to tune in to each other's thoughts and emotions, even when they're physically separated or when their traditional senses are blocked.
Wow, that's a really powerful image. It makes me think about times I've felt like I knew what a close friend was thinking or feeling, even when we haven't spoken in a while.
Right. Those moments of intuitive knowing, that sense of connection that goes beyond physical boundaries, those could be glimpses into this non-local aspect of consciousness.
I like that, glimpses into the non-local. Okay, let's move on to DNA resonance. I know DNA carries our genetic code, but how could it be involved in communication?
This is where things get really interesting. Some researchers suggest that DNA doesn't just store biological information.
Okay.
It might also emit and receive electromagnetic signals. Picture it like an antenna. It's constantly sending and receiving subtle, energetic vibrations.
So it's like DNA is broadcasting on a frequency that other DNA can pick up.
That's the idea. And since a daughter inherits half of her DNA from her mother, you could imagine this kind of resonant harmony between them. A shared frequency that allows for a deeper, more intuitive level of communication.
But how could this play out in a real-life scenario? Like with the mother and daughter we're talking about.
Well, imagine the daughter is blindfolded, focusing on her mother's presence. Perhaps there's a subtle energetic exchange happening through their shared DNA, a kind of vibrational communication that bypasses the need for words or sight.
It's like their DNA is acting as a bridge between their minds, allowing them to share thoughts and feelings on an unconscious level.
Exactly. And this takes us into the world of epigenetics, which suggests that our experiences and emotions can actually leave imprints on our DNA. Imagine if some of those imprints, those energetic patterns, could be shared or even inherited.
So you're saying that the daughter could be picking up on her mother's emotions not just through their current interaction, but through a shared history embedded in their very DNA.
It's a possibility. And think about what that means for a mother-daughter relationship. They share not only genes, but also a lifetime of experiences, both joyful and challenging. Those shared experiences could create a powerful, energetic bond that transcends conscious awareness.
Wow. It's like they're tapping into a well of shared memories, emotions, even ancestral patterns, all encoded within their DNA. That's incredible.
It is, isn't it? Makes you wonder just how deep that mother-daughter connection really goes.
It really does.
And speaking of deep connections, we can't forget about quantum entanglement.
Ah, yes. Quantum entanglement, the phenomenon that even Einstein called spooky action at a distance.
Exactly. It's the idea that two particles, once connected, remain linked no matter how far apart they are. It's like they're instantly aware of each other's state. Imagine flipping two coins simultaneously. If one lands on heads, the other will always land on tails, even if they're miles apart.
Okay, I think I'm starting to grasp the concept.
Mm.
But how does this relate to telepathy, especially between our mother and daughter?
Well, what if the bond between a mother and daughter creates a sort of entanglement, where their thoughts and emotions are intertwined in a similar way? Could this explain that feeling of knowing what the other is thinking or feeling, even without any physical cues?
So you're suggesting that their minds, through this intense emotional connection, might be entangled in a way that allows them to share experiences on a quantum level.
That's one way to think about it. And if this is true, it could have profound implications for understanding the potential of human connection. We might be far more interconnected than we realize, not just through our shared humanity, but through the very fabric of reality itself.
This is all so mind-blowing.
It is.
We've got the mind as a non-local field, DNA resonance, and now quantum entanglement. It's like we're building a case for telepathy from multiple angles. But how do all these pieces fit together? Is there a way to make sense of it all?
Well, that's where the 12 links of dependent origination come in.
The 12 links of dependent origination.
Yeah. This ancient Buddhist concept might just provide a framework for understanding how telepathy could actually operate within this broader context of consciousness and interconnectedness.
Intriguing. Let's dive in.
It's kind of like a cosmic domino effect.
Okay.
Each link in the chain leads to the next, creating this flow of cause and effect that ultimately shapes our experience of reality. And it just might hold the key to understanding how something like telepathy could even be possible.
I'm all ears. Walk me through these 12 links. How do they relate to telepathy?
Okay, so the first link is ignorance.
Ignorance.
Yeah, our lack of awareness of the interconnectedness of all things. We often see ourselves as separate individuals, isolated from each other, isolated from the world around us. But what if that perception is actually an illusion?
So you're saying telepathy could be a crack in that illusion,
Exactly.
a glimpse into the reality of our interconnectedness.
Exactly. By recognizing that fundamental interconnectedness, we might open ourselves up to the possibility of communication that transcends the limitations of our physical senses.
Okay, that makes sense. So what's the next link in this chain?
The second link is mental formations.
Mental formations.
The thoughts, emotions, and habitual patterns that shape our perceptions and experiences.
Right.
Now, think about the mother and daughter we've been discussing.
Right.
They share a lifetime of memories, emotions, experiences. Those shared experiences create this kind of mental resonance between them, a web of interconnected thoughts and feelings.
So it's like their minds are already tuned to the same frequency,
Precisely.
even before they're consciously trying to communicate telepathically.
Exactly. And this shared mental landscape, it provides really fertile ground for a telepathic connection. Then the third link is consciousness itself,
Okay.
that awareness that experiences those mental formations. Now, imagine that their shared experiences have created a kind of shared field of consciousness, a space where their individual awarenesses kind of overlap and intertwine.
So it's not just about individual minds sending signals back and forth.
Right.
It's about a merging of consciousness.
Yes.
A blurring of the lines between me and you.
You're getting it. And the shared consciousness leads us to the fourth link, name and form.
Name and form.
The labels and identities we attach to ourselves and the world around us. Remember, the daughter in our scenario is blindfolded, relying on senses beyond sight to perceive her mother.
Right.
This suggests that telepathy operates beyond the limits of our conventional perception, beyond the realm of name and form.
It's like she's tapping into a deeper level of awareness,
Exactly.
a level where those labels and boundaries dissolve.
Exactly. And this brings us to the fifth link, the sixth sense bases.
Six sense bases. Okay.
Sight, hearing, smell, taste, touch, and mental perception.
Right.
What if telepathy is a sixth sense?
Oh, interesting.
A way of perceiving subtle energies and information that lie beyond the range of our typical senses.
It's like a hidden sensory pathway, a way of perceiving the world that we're not normally tuned into.
Right. Now, the sixth link is contact. Where the daughter's consciousness meets her mother's thoughts. This contact might not be happening through the usual channels of sight, sound, or touch. It could be an energetic exchange, a meeting of minds in that shared field of consciousness we talked about.
Like their minds are touching, even though their bodies are separate.
Exactly. And this contact leads to the seventh link, feeling. The daughter might perceive her mother's thoughts not as clear images or words, but as feelings, intuitions, a sense of knowing.
A gut feeling,
Yeah.
a heart knowing, a sense of resonance rather than a direct transmission of information.
Beautifully put. Now, the eighth link is craving. This is where things get really interesting.
Okay.
It's about that desire for something,
Right.
that
Yeah.
yearning to connect. In this case, the daughter's craving for connection with her mother might actually enhance her receptivity to telepathic communication.
So by letting go of the need to communicate in those conventional ways, she opens herself up to these more subtle forms of connection.
Precisely. And the ninth link is clinging,
Clinging.
the attachment to the idea of separation. We often cling to this notion of ourselves as separate individuals, distinct from the world around us. But the 12 links suggest that this separation is an illusion.
So by releasing our clinging to that illusion, we might become more open to experiencing the interconnectedness that already exists.
Exactly. And this brings us to the 10th link, becoming. By letting go of that clinging, recognizing her interconnectedness with her mother, the daughter enters a state of becoming, a state of expanded awareness where telepathic connection becomes possible.
It's like she's transcending the limitations of her ordinary perception,
Right.
stepping into this realm of shared experience.
The 11th link is birth, the arising of a new way of perceiving and experiencing the world. In this case, the birth is the arising of telepathic understanding, a new dimension of connection between the mother and daughter.
It's the birth of a deeper understanding,
Yes.
a more profound connection that transcends those limitations of the physical senses.
And finally, we reach the 12th link, aging and death. This link reminds us that all things are impermanent, even extraordinary experiences like telepathic communication.
A reminder to cherish those moments of connection.
Yes.
To appreciate that wonder and mystery of consciousness, even as we acknowledge the transient nature of all things.
You've summed it up perfectly. The 12 links of dependent origination, they provide this framework for understanding how telepathy might be possible, not as some supernatural phenomenon, but as a natural expression of our interconnectedness.
It's like a roadmap to awakening, a guide to understanding the true nature of reality, and that profound potential that lies within each and every one of us.
You know, as we're discussing this, it makes me think about the Telepathy Tapes documentary you mentioned earlier.
Yes.
It explores these real-world examples of what could be telepathic communication, specifically focusing on non-speakers with autism.
Yeah. I'm so curious to hear more about this documentary. What kind of insights did it offer into the possibility of telepathy?
Well, the documentary follows neuroscientist Dr. Diane Hennacy Powell as she travels the world, meeting with families, witnessing these extraordinary abilities firsthand.
Wow.
They're conducting telepathy tests, really diving deep into the science behind these phenomena.
So it's not just anecdotal evidence.
No.
They're actually putting these abilities to the test.
Exactly. One particularly striking example involves a young man who can accurately describe objects hidden in another room.
Wow, that's incredible.
The documentary suggests that these individuals might be tapping into a way of knowing that goes beyond our traditional senses, a way of perceiving information that we're only beginning to understand.
It's like they're offering us a glimpse into a different way of experiencing the world.
Right?
A world where communication doesn't always rely on our typical sensory channels.
Right. And it raises some profound questions about the nature of consciousness and the untapped potential of the human mind.
Yeah.
If these individuals can communicate telepathically, does that mean it's a potential that lies dormant within all of us?
It's a fascinating question. And it makes me wonder if we could cultivate these abilities through practices like meditation or mindfulness.
That's a great point. By quieting the mind, focusing our attention inward, we might become more attuned to subtle energies and intuitive insights. It's like we're training our minds to be more receptive to the whispers of the universe, those subtle signals that might be all around us.
I love that analogy. Training our minds to be more receptive to the whispers of the universe. It makes this whole exploration feel less like a search for something out there and more like a journey of self-discovery.
Exactly. And it's a journey that's open to all of us. You don't need to be a neuroscientist or a Buddhist monk to explore the potential of your own mind. There are simple practices you can incorporate into your daily life to cultivate awareness, deepen your connection with yourself and others, and perhaps even tap into those whispers of the universe.
So where do we begin? What are some practical steps we can take to explore these concepts in our own lives?
Well, one of the most powerful tools we have is meditation.
Meditation. It seems like we always come back to meditation.
We do.
But what is it about meditation that makes it so effective for cultivating these kinds of abilities?
Think of your mind like a pond.
Yeah.
When the surface is constantly rippled by thoughts, emotions, distractions, it's hard to see what lies beneath. But when the surface is still, you can start to perceive the depths, those subtle currents and movements that were always there but hidden from view.
Okay, I see how that analogy applies to calming the mind, but how does that relate to telepathy or these other subtle forms of communication?
Well, if telepathy is like a subtle signal, like a whisper in the wind, a calm mind is much more likely to perceive it. When you're not constantly bombarded by that internal noise, you become more sensitive to subtle energies, information, both within yourself and in the world around you.
So it's like meditation is a way of tuning our inner radio to a different frequency,
Exactly.
one where we might be able to pick up those subtle signals.
Exactly. And there are so many different forms of meditation. You can find one that resonates with you. You could try a simple mindfulness practice, focusing on your breath or bodily sensations. You could explore guided visualizations, imagining yourself connected to a loved one or to a field of universal consciousness. The key is to find a practice that helps you quiet the mind and cultivate that sense of presence and awareness.
Those sound like great starting points. And I imagine that consistency is key, just like with any skill you're trying to develop.
Absolutely. It's about creating that regular practice, even if it's just for a few minutes each day.
Yeah.
And don't be discouraged if you don't experience any, mind-blowing telepathic breakthroughs right away.
So it's not about striving for some specific outcome.
Right.
It's more about cultivating a state of open awareness and receptivity.
Exactly. It's about approaching this exploration with curiosity, patience, and a willingness to embrace the unknown.
It sounds like a journey that's as much about self-discovery as it is about exploring the potential for telepathy.
As we're talking about this, I'm reminded of a quote by the Buddhist teacher Thich Nhat Hanh. He said, "The most precious gift we can offer anyone is our presence. When mindfulness embraces those we love, they will bloom like flowers."
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
It really highlights the power of presence and connection, which seems to be at the heart of this whole exploration.
It really does. And it makes me wonder if perhaps the most profound form of telepathy isn't about transmitting specific thoughts or images, but about cultivating that deep heart-centered presence with ourselves and others.
It's like the ultimate form of communication isn't about words, even thoughts, but about a shared energy, a resonance of being.
Yeah, it really is. And as we've been exploring these ideas, it's become clear that telepathy from an awakened perspective may not be about supernatural powers,
Right.
but about recognizing the profound interconnectedness of all beings.
Yeah, it's like we're shifting from a worldview of separation to one of unity. Realizing that we're all part of this vast web of life, interconnected in ways we're only just beginning to understand.
Precisely. And if we can cultivate that awareness, that sense of interconnectedness, who knows what other amazing possibilities might open up? What other abilities might we discover within ourselves and in our relationships with others?
This whole conversation has really stretched my understanding of what's possible. I came into this deep dive curious about telepathy, but it feels like we've uncovered something so much bigger.
Yeah.
A whole new way of looking at the world, our place in it.
I think you've hit the nail on the head. Telepathy, in a sense, is just one expression of this deeper truth. This understanding that we're all interconnected, that we're all part of something much greater than ourselves.
It's like the universe is whispering to us all the time, revealing its secrets through subtle signs and synchronicities, intuitive nudges, moments of profound connection. But we're often too caught up in our own thoughts, distractions to notice.
And that's where practices like meditation and mindfulness come in, right? They help
Yeah.
us quiet the internal chatter, to become more present and aware, to tune in to those whispers of the universe, the ones that might be guiding us toward greater understanding, deeper connection, a more awakened way of being.
It's like we're being invited to step into this new way of being,
Yeah.
a way of being that embraces the unknown, that celebrates the mystery of life, and recognizes the profound potential within each of us.
You've captured the essence of it beautifully. It's not about seeking some far-off mystical experience, but about cultivating a sense of wonder and awe in the present moment and the everyday experiences of life.
Absolutely. We've covered a lot of ground today, from quantum physics to ancient Buddhist philosophy, DNA resonance to the abilities of non-speakers with autism. It's been quite a journey.
It has.
And while we may not have all the answers, I feel like we've opened up this whole new world of possibilities.
I couldn't agree more. And perhaps that's the most important takeaway from our deep dive today. Telepathy, higher consciousness, interconnectedness, these aren't just abstract concepts to be debated in, academic circles.
Right.
They're invitations to explore the vast potential of our own minds,
Yeah.
to deepen our connection with ourselves, with others, to live a more awakened and fulfilling life.
And the biggest takeaway for me is this. Telepathy might not be some supernatural phenomenon reserved for a select few. It could be a natural expression of our interconnectedness, a potential that lies dormant within all of us, just waiting to be awakened.
And who knows, maybe as we continue to explore these concepts, as we deepen our understanding of consciousness, the interconnectedness of all things, we'll discover that the world is even more magical than we ever imagined.
I love that. A world full of magic and wonder, where communication transcends the boundaries of language and distance, where hearts connect on a level beyond words. It's a beautiful vision, and I, for one, am excited to keep exploring.
As am I. And to our listener, we leave you with this thought. What if the most extraordinary adventures aren't out there in the world, but within the depths of your own being? What if the greatest discoveries aren't made in laboratories or ancient texts, but in the quiet spaces of your own heart? Keep questioning, keep exploring, and keep opening your mind to the infinite possibilities that exist within and all around you.
Who knows what wonders you might uncover? Until next time, keep diving deep.